The police report that came out today says essentially what we already knew, is that a large crowd was in a small alleyway near Itaewon Station on the night of October 29th. And as the crowds packed more and more, it became difficult for people to move. They were so tightly, densely packed that they were moving like a fluid, not as a particle, but as a whole body, as a mass. And eventually at about 10:15 p.m., several people started to fall over at the front of this narrow street, and the crowds kept pushing from the back, which is slightly uphill, and they had no idea what was going on downhill, and the crowds kept pushing, leading to more collapses and people being essentially crushed to death on this small alley on Halloween night.
So who was responsible? Who are those accused of serious crimes over the incident, and what will happen to them?
Yes, well, police in their report that was released today have in total decided that 23 people will be referred to the prosecution, 23 government officials. 6 have already been detained. Among those being accused of fatal professional negligence are the head of Yongsan district, which is where it took place, as well as the former head of police of that district, the head of the the head of the firefighter station, as well as the head of Itaewon Station, have all been referred on similar charges. Other police officers and government officials have also been referred to the prosecution. Once the prosecution looks into this, they will potentially investigate further to see whether or not to indict them on these charges or not. But at the moment, senior government officials have yet to be blamed in all of this. The key senior officials that everyone was kind of looking at have been spared any blame whatsoever.
Well, victims' families aren't happy about this. They're arguing for people higher up the chain to be held responsible.
Yes, they've been asking that the people at the very top, especially the Minister of Interior and Safety, take responsibility, apologize and resign. Unfortunately, these bereaved families have yet to hear from those at the very top. It very much sounds like for the past few weeks that they've been trying to deflect responsibility and brush off this event to the point where sometimes they're not even mentioning this disaster during major speeches. So they have been wanting to get answers from people at the very top, including the president himself, who has yet to take responsibility and apologize for this man-made disaster in which we have seen serious failures at a state level caused by failure of authorities to devise disaster prevention measures and take action during an emergency situation. And ultimately, the person at the top, the president, even though he might not be to blame for this, has yet to apologize on a state level for what has happened.
And in the aftermath of the incident, several families were asked for autopsies of their loved ones for drug testing. What can you tell us about that and the impact it has had on families?
Yeah, so in early days, actually even before the disaster happened, the police had already announced that they would be cracking down on drugs in the Itaewon area, even though Korea is not necessarily like I say, a famous country for drugs. So already it caused a bit of confusion. And in following that, after the disaster, police collected hundreds of items from that street, including water bottles, to try test them for drugs. As expected, they didn't find any positive traces. And they had approached several families asking for autopsies, saying that there was some drug-related issue. At the beginning, there were only 2 families, but it's been said yesterday that actually there were a lot more, a dozen or 15 or so families that were asked the same questions to get autopsies to check on drugs. In a press conference with the bereaved families that I attended several weeks ago, many of these families were visibly upset and extremely angry that what they see as shifting the blame on the victims, as opposed to those, like I said, at the top taking responsibility for what has happened. So of course it's very distressing, and this latest report that has come out today also from what I understand is that a lot of the families are again even more upset and angry that the people at the top have been spared any blame whatsoever.
And it appears they still have a lot of questions that haven't been answered. This report is not the end of investigations. The parliamentary inquiry continues. What might come out of that?
The parliamentary inquiry will continue. It has been extended and is set to expire, I believe, next week. We might get some answers, maybe a few more answers as to what happened, but overall, I think the families will be asking a lot more questions, and they still have yet to understand what happened to their individual cases and why they lost their loved ones, especially their children, on that night. The recurring theme in all of this is the theme of responsibility, and given that they have yet to receive any apology whatsoever, has just exacerbated their feelings. And I think we're going to see that this is definitely not the end of it, and there will be a lot more questions that will need to be answered over the next few weeks, months, if not years.
Raphael Rashid, thank you so much.
Thank you.